Well, the current voice of the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, the current voice of the Hawkeyes. That could end tomorrow, but that's here nor there. But the current interim athletic director, Beth Getz, who is a terrific gal, she said, we were talking about Kirk's 25th anniversary for Coach Ferentz. And she said, I'm so happy to be working with Kirk. She said, because I used to come in here and we'd get our tail kicked. She used to be at Minnesota. And I think that winning streak's still intact with P.J. Fleck and the Gophers, but she's a delight to be around. Kirk is his usual nervous self right now, as he always is. He's been doing this for a long time, and he's not shaking, but he's all coaches are nervous the day before the opening game of the season.
Well, and then he has all the commitments this week to go talk to supporters in different contexts, but you know, your team the last week, it goes through game preparation. Up until then, you're evaluating everyone, you're trying to make them better at what they do, but when you go into 1 week before, you look at film of the opponent and you get into the game mood, and then you hope that nobody's hurt.
Yeah, it's always, Iowa's got terrific starters and decent depth, but we got to keep the guys healthy. And I know you're all wondering about Cade McNamara, the quarterback. He's going to play tomorrow. I have no doubt he'll play. Will he start? If he starts, how long will he go? We'll know a couple hours before kickoff tomorrow. But having gotten to know Cade, as you know, and Ed was a quarterback, but all good quarterbacks, they've got a little blank to their game, chip on their shoulder, they're tough. It's the most important position on the field, without question, is the quarterback spot. And I really like him. He's got that demeanor. He's got a little cockiness to him. All quarterbacks have to have a little bit of an arrogant streak, but he can throw it. You know, he threw 21 touchdown passes to 7 interceptions in 16 games at Michigan. He's 13-3 as a starter. I like that percentage. He's 6'1", about 205. And he's a guy that can get out on the edge and run. Now, they don't want him running tomorrow. They want him to stay in the pocket and throw the ball and maybe scramble a little bit. But with that quad muscle injury, have you had an injury like that in your history?
Well, I'm not really sure what it is. They say it's a soft tissue injury, and that could be a hamstring. It could be a quad. I've had them both, and if you try to come back too soon from them, you ended up straining them again and again. My rookie year in the NFL, I missed 9 weeks with a hamstring pull.
Hamstrings can take a long time.
And Hank Strand finally looked at me one day and said, if you strain that thing again, you're on a bus out of here. So I got the word.
You got healthy in a hurry.
I didn't work out for a while.
Ed Podolak, who won a Super Bowl championship with the Chiefs back in the early 70s, the first Super Bowl championship with the Chiefs. And I was thinking about you today. I was reading about Gil Brandt. Gil Brandt passed away yesterday at the age of 91. Gil Brandt was the longtime general manager, player personnel director for the Dallas Cowboys, long before Dallas really got it going. But he was one of the more brilliant minds. I mean, he's the guy that saw something in Roger Staubach and Bob Lilly and Drew Pearson and Cliff Harris and Emmitt Smith, all these great players at the Cowboys. And, you know, Gil was really revving up when you were in Kansas City. Of course, the Chiefs originally were the Dallas Texans?
Yeah, Dallas Texans.
And they moved, Lamar Hunt moved them from Dallas to Kansas City, and essentially that's how the Cowboys were born. So I was thinking about you when I read about Gil Brandt today. What a brilliant mind he had for seeing football talent.
I met him when I was a senior in college. He invited me to the Dallas summer camp that they had north of Los Angeles after my junior year, and worked me out and sent me all of these things all the time in the mail. to become a cowboy. And I thought I was going to be a cowboy, and then the Chiefs drafted me first. So, but I ended up being a great friend of Gil's for his entire life. And he was as smart as they get. And I negotiated a lot of contracts too. And 91 years old, he knew a lot.
Yeah, and it's a different game now than when he was building those championship teams in Dallas. Well, let's talk Hawkeyes. We talked about McNamara. I mean, his strengths. He's got a terrific arm. He's a run-pass option quarterback, and I'm guessing you won't see a lot of that tomorrow simply because of that soft tissue dent he has in his quad muscle. But he can still play. He wants to play, and he can play. And that said, with a speaking of 91 degree prediction by halftime, it's supposed to be 82 degrees at kickoff. As our old buddy Ron Gonder used to say, you won't need your bumper shoot or your galoshes tomorrow. If you like blue sky and sunshine and heat, you'll have it over at Kinnick Stadium. And I was talking to Kirk about that, and he said, that too much gets made of the heat. Players are such fine condition. You've been working at it all August. They'll be fine tomorrow. They've got enough hydration machines, and fans will be blowing. You fans will be blowing. So will the fans on the sideline. But to me, tomorrow, and I know that most people don't want to hear this, Utah State is not used to these kinds of weather conditions. So tomorrow, it's ground and pound. It's run it inside the tackles. It's run over these guys for 3 quarters. And then by the 4th quarter, you've got things under control. You want to take some passes downfield, that's fine. But we know Ferentz too well. And on a day like tomorrow, nothing beats you down quicker than 300-pound guys laying on you and knocking you 3 levels back. Take your shots when you have them, but it's run the football.
Well, and also our defense is so strong. We've got 2 players at every position who could start on defense on the line. So there's where you can rotate them. Because what happens in the synthetic turf, they have those little
tire bits
made out of tires.
Yeah.
And they heat up. They're 25 to 30 degrees hotter than what the temperature is. And when you're down there with your hand in the ground and you're there for 2 or 3 hours, it wears you out. And that's where the big boys need help. And if you watch, we are so smart. We run defensive linemen in and out. None of them play more than 30 or 40 plays a game, and they're always fresh.
And Iowa has had a history now the last few years of rotating 8 to 10 guys in a defensive tackle. Now, we won't have Noah Shannon tomorrow. That's unfortunate, but he's not going to be there. Hopefully he's back in a couple weeks. His case for wagering is on appeal, but they do have Joe Evans and Deontay Craig, and you're going to see some new names out there tomorrow. Let me look at your 2D, buddy boy.
Next page.
Next page. You're going to see Jeremiah Pittman tomorrow. He's had a great camp. Y.A. Black is finally healthy, and he is a menacing presence at 6'5", 315 pounds. A junior from Minnesota. Logan Lee has been steady Eddie for a couple years, but Joe Evans and Deontay Craig on the outside, they'll be backed up by, without Noah in there, you'll see a lot of Aaron Graves, Max Llewellyn, Pittman I mentioned, Ethan Herkett, kid from Cedar Rapids Xavier, who I loved a couple years ago. He got hurt, and he's never really been the same since he hurt that knee playing as a true freshman. Well, now he's a junior, and he's healthy. And he can play inside or out. So they've got, Lucas Van Ness would have been in there this year, but I think he made the right decision, don't you? 13th pick overall in the NFL draft with the Packers, and he's had a great camp, by the way. So you've got 8 guys up front. You've got the linebackers are good. No, Jack Campbell's not there. Seth Benson's gone, but you're going to love Nick Jackson, the transfer from Virginia. And Kyler Fisher and Jay Higgins have been quietly waiting their time. Now it's their turn. And then in that secondary, you got a lot of All-American type talent.
Well, what I didn't like to hear today was that Jeremy is injured again.
Oh, Jamari Harris. Jamari Harris. Jamari Harris, he's been nicked in camp. How much he plays tomorrow, your guess is as good as mine, but they do have Quinn Schulte's the senior leader back there, such a smart football player at safety. His dad's a Hall of Fame high school coach. And then we got the X-Man Wampa and Cooper DeJean. So they're so solid in the back end. Sebastian Castro has been good for 2 years now. He'll play a lot more tomorrow with some of the guys nursing some injuries. But that defense forced 23 turnovers last year and scored 66 points off 23 turnovers. So they know where the end zone is. And a lot of these guys are former high school offensive stars. So they know how to get to the end zone. They want to score points. It'd be nice to see a couple more pick sixes tomorrow. Pick up right where we left off at the bowl game with Kentucky when we saw you guys down in Nashville. Special teams, what is left to say about Torrey Taylor or Drew Stevens? Well, hopefully a lot. Torrey Taylor told me earlier in the camp, I said, you had 82 punts last year? And a third of them died inside the 20, and many of those died inside the 10. What an advantage that is for the defense, to have a punter who not only averages 45 yards a boot, but has a long of 70, and many of those things roll and then take a left-hand turn, or they put a blinker on, go out at the 3-yard line on the right sideline. That's a luxury like we haven't seen since Reggie Roby.
Well, yeah, he's, I think, the best weapon we've had the last 2 years is the way he can kick the ball. And, well, he did run on a fake punt one time, and I don't
do that again.
I don't think LeVar was very happy about that one, but I heard he lost 20 pounds, too.
He has. He's dropped 15. He's down to like 210, 215 now. And he said, well, you know, mate, I would like to punt a few less times this year. I said, I don't think you have to worry about that, Torrey. You'll be punting. That right leg will be getting a little bit more of a break this year. And, Drew Stevens, 16 of 18 in field goals last year. 16 of 18, think about that. And 4 of them were from 40 to 50 yards out. And he was perfect in point after tries. So the special teams have always been important at Iowa, as you all know. Downfield coverage, punt kick coverage. Who's going to return kicks? Who's going to return punts? Well, Cooper DeJean's going to be out there doing one or both. But they like a lot of those young guys for kick returns. Running back, Caleb Johnson's outstanding. They've got 3 or 4 backs they could run in there. I think you'll see a couple of them out there returning kicks, like Jazz Patterson and maybe a couple of others. But they'll get it covered. I mean, LeVar Woods is as good as they come in terms of special teams coaches. So that's kind of, go ahead.
Let's don't forget Luke Elkin, the deep
long snapper. Yeah.
The deep snapper is so important, especially in those windy conditions. And he earned a scholarship this year.
He did.
He won a scholarship, and he was about 190 pounds when they first discovered him. But he's the first guy down the field covering punts. He's done a great job.
I don't know that we've ever had a long snapper who hasn't come in at 190 or 200 pounds. I mean, they're small in stature, but I mean, ask Torrey Taylor and Drew Stevens how important the long snapper is back there. Guy's always got his head between his legs, and if you didn't know his number, you wouldn't know who it is. But Luke's a very soft-spoken kid, but man, he is valuable and will be all season long. So that's. As far as surprises, I'll give you a couple names. Look out for Seth Anderson, the wide receiver transfer from Charleston Southern. He's had a great camp. He caught 6 touchdown passes a year ago, 700 yards. So he can run with it after he catches it. And Charleston Southern is not the Big Ten, but it is an FCS power. A UNI division type powerhouse in football championship series. Addison, yeah, go Panthers. Oh, you said boo Panthers, okay. Let's bring a microphone to you. It's your show. What the heck? We'll be without you tomorrow? Well, we'll have 70,000 of your friends there, though. We can, hopefully, we'll look forward to you. Are you going to Ames next week?
I'm going tomorrow.
You're going tomorrow. He's going to get an early start to the Iowa State game. I heard from Mark Farley yesterday, and UNI plays the Cyclones tomorrow, and Coach Farley is one of our dear friends and a great coach. And we wish UNI all the best this year in the Missouri Valley Conference Football League. Another name I'll give you, Luke Lachey, and you're going to love Eric All, the tight end who transferred in from Michigan, but this Addison Ostrunga, who's a pure sophomore from Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. He's gotten up to 255 pounds at 6'4", 6'5". And what Ferentz loves about him is he's not your prototypical tight end. He can get out in the slot and he can run down the field. He can run down the hash mark. And what Kirk loves about him is he's not afraid to engage contact. Run over the middle, catch the ball in traffic, get blasted by a linebacker, hit the ground, hang out of the ball, jumps up and runs back to the huddle. That's the kind of guy you want in your football team.
Oh, for sure, especially a tight end, because they've got to catch the ball over the middle, and they know they're going to get hit, that's for sure. I think you'll see a lot of formations this fall that have 3 tight ends on the field, because the fullback position is a little different now, because we've switched to tight end to fullback, and so we might be using that 3rd tight end as a blocking back, as a fullback.
They actually have 5 tight ends now that they can use. Young guy who came in here a year ago from Lafayette named Steven Stylianos. They liked him, obviously. I think he might have been our only transfer portal get a year ago, or maybe one of 2. But Coach really liked him in the re-recruiting process. He came in here, and he's from Lafayette. He's a smart guy. But it took him longer to learn the playbook, figure out the nuances of the Iowa offense, and Kirk tells us he's been tremendous. So he can play. He will play. So you got Ostrunga, All, Lachey, Stylianos, and how much more dangerous does that make Luke Lachey or Eric All if those 2 guys and maybe a 3rd are out there contributing? So you see a lot of rotation tomorrow and probably throughout the month of September. We haven't really talked about the offensive line in particular, name-wise. I mean, this was the Achilles heel a year ago. Memory serves me correct, the Hawks gave up 55 sacks. Now, they weren't all on the offensive line, okay? But that's way too many, regardless of whose fault it is. But the same guys are back. They're another year older. They're healthy for the most part. Mason Richmond at left tackle. He was battling some nagging injuries. He's okay to go left tackle. Nick DeYoung, the young guy from down here at Pella, he's had a terrific camp. Logan Jones, now his 2nd year as center. That can't be easy coming over from the defensive line to play maybe the toughest position in the O-line at center, because you're calling all the defenses out.
Well, that's the important part is not only was he in his first year at center, but he had offensive linemen that were in their first year lined up next to him, and he's got to recognize what kind of defense it is, call the blocking, then put his hand down, and then snap the ball. I like the conversation that Kirk had earlier this year when he was trying to teach McNamara how to actually get the ball from the center, because the guy in high school or college had never lined up under a center.
Yeah.
He'd always been back in the shotgun. So it's a tough road to hoe to become that center. And now Kirk sounded so confident in the way that they've managed to improve.
Think about this. If you're in the gun or the pistol, you're snapping it back different distances, varying distances. Now the center comes up underneath your backside, and you've got to get the ball straight up into his hands. I mean, you know more about that than I do, and you're calling out the defenses, and you're grabbing the ball by the seams and shooting it back there. A lot of responsibility. But Logan is a young guy out of Council Bluffs. He's been terrific. Connor Colby is back at, I think, his natural position, which is right guard. He was a freshman All-American 3 years ago out of Cedar Rapids, Kennedy, and he's ready to go. I was talking to him a couple weeks back, and he's motivated, and he's healthy. And then Man Mountain Jennings Dunker, what a great name, Jennings Dunker. Last year he had red hair down to his shoulder blades. Now he's got it cropped in a crew cut, and he's a little bitty guy, 6'5", 315. And one thing, he and Bo Stevens operates to a little different clock too, I might add. Bo's a backup guard right now, but don't be surprised if you see Bo in there a lot. He's 6'6", 310 out of Blue Springs, Missouri. But Bo and Jennings in particular in spring ball said, yeah, we heard all the cackling last year about how bad we are and how we're always screwing up, and we read the papers and social media. Don't believe any of that crap that says we don't read what is going on out there. But he said, we're motivated by that. We're upset. We're going to be nasty next year. Now, that was last April. So Jennings and Bo, I'm anxious to see them prove their point.
What about the bail throw?
Yeah, Jennings Dunker won the bail throw in Solon. That's
14
right.
feet 6 inches, a 50-pound bail over a high jump deal. And I saw Eric Steinbach today, who is going into the Hall of Fame, who was All-American, All-Pro, terrific guy. He's back here. He said, I read about that. If I'd have been here, I'd have challenged him.
The hay bale throw in Solon. What a great fundraiser that is. Jennings operates to the same clock that Rusty Feth does. I got to say something about Rusty. Now, he's a kid who came in from Miami. He was recruited by George Barnett at Miami. And I interviewed Rusty a few days ago. I said, what is it about your relationship with George Barnett? He said, he recruited me once. I wanted to make him recruit me twice. And then he laughed. He's got a shaved head, and when I interviewed him, he had a red beard down to his belly button. Now, I'm guessing he's got that thing trimmed up. He doesn't want one of those defensive tackles grabbing onto that. But this guy is all offensive lineman. You'll see him play tomorrow. He's 6'3", 310. He was an all MAC, Mid-America Conference, all-conference guard. He can play guard or center. He's built low to the ground, but boy, he is nasty. He likes to play in the dirt, and you'll see him out there tomorrow. The other kid, Dejon Parker, who they really liked in the recruiting process at right tackle, has not been 100% healthy, so he's behind, but Kirk likes his progress. I don't know that he'll play tomorrow, but the offensive line should be better. It has to be better. Has to be better, there's no doubt about it. I don't think we left anything out, buddy boy.
Pardon?
I don't think we left anything out.
Just you and me.
Yeah, I mean...
We'll be there. We're both... Are you going to make it, or do you have any ailments that'll keep you away?
No, I'm, my blood pressure's a little high, but, it always is this time of year.
And not as high as it'll get when you get started announcing.
No, true. Well, this is the part of the period we take questions. So throw anything at us. We'll try and answer it to the best of our ability, as they say. Bring your own water bottles. They're going to have the water stations going tomorrow. So everybody stay hydrated, as Ed likes to say. Yes, sir. Predictions on the season record-wise.
12-0.
12-0. I'm with him. I'm going to go 13-0. How's that?
I'd make a bet on that, but then they'd eliminate me from doing the game.
Yeah, we can't. Yeah, we don't want to get into that wagering thing. Two very tough road games, obviously, at Penn State, at Wisconsin. Now, the Hawks have held their own against the Nittany Lions over Kirk's tenure, pretty close to 500. Camp Randall's a tough place to play, let alone win at Wisconsin. So that'll be those two games are earmarked games.
Well, the Penn State game too is also a night game, and it's white out, and that is the craziest crowd I've ever seen in my, what am I now, 42 years of doing Hawkeye games?
15,000 people, maniacs that are waving white towels the entire night. I've never been able to figure that one out, other than their uniforms are white. But I remember one night, one Saturday night game was raining pretty good, a whiteout night at Happy Valley, and they come out, and I forget the quarterback's name, but he's rolling to his right, and he throws a touchdown pass on the first play of the game. And that was against Norm Parker's defense. Oh man, Norm was not happy. He got Adrian Claiborne out there, and Pat Anger, and A.J. Eads, and Broderick Binns, and Tyler Sash, and all these great players. But that was, I think, the only touchdown they scored the entire night. That's the night Adrian Claiborne blocked the punt, and it bounced right back up into his belly, and he outran the entire Penn State offense for a touchdown. And I think the Hawks won that game 19-11. So I'd take something like that. When is that? The end of September. That's the first Big Ten game, I believe, or Big Ten road game.
Yeah, last weekend in September.
Yeah, I think we have. That is the Big Ten opener, because then we have Michigan State, I believe, at home. Doesn't matter. That's way down the road. The main thing is with this defense, the Hawks can win any game they play. And if the offense does its part, the defense will do its part. It's going to be a fun year. You know, realistically, you think about last year, I was thinking about this on the drive down today, our fullback gets the nose of the football over the goal line against the Cyclones. They call it a touchdown, and then they reverse it. And that's rarity. And then at Illinois, Riley Moss takes a wobbly football off the belly button of the quarterback, runs 80 yards for a touchdown. They reverse that. There's two more wins. 10-2 looks a lot better than 8-4. But you don't cry about spilled milk. You got to execute in all three phases, and this team is set up to do that with a great punter, great kicker, great defense. We'll miss Jack Campbell and Riley Moss's leadership and Lucas Van Ness's athleticism, but you know what? It's this defense's time. It's these kids' time.
Well, that's college football.
It is.
A third of your team changes every year. They move on. And so you've got to be ready. And I think since Coach has done it for 25 years, he's kind of figured it out, don't you think?
Except the transfer portal. He hasn't figured that one out yet. You want to get him going, just bring up transfer portal. But hopefully it pays off. They brought in 9 guys this year, 7 on the offensive side of the football. Brought in a couple of JUCOs. By the way, you're going to love this kid. He might play tomorrow. This kid from Iowa Western Community College. I'll tell you what his name is here in a second. Where'd he go? Oh, he's up here. Ontario Thompson. There's another name for you. Kid from Hempstead High School up in Dubuque. He had a great year, and as you all know, if you follow football, Iowa Western wins national championships like they're picking cherries or picking apples with regularity. Great program. And Ontario, I love that first name. He's 6'3", about 290. So he's built low to the ground, but is he all Gable type wrestler with that body? He is phenomenal. You watch him in practice, you think, this guy's going to be playing. So he's just waiting his turn, learning the playbook. But he's the kind of kid Phil Parker or Kelvin Bell would throw out there tomorrow and not blink an eye. And we hope to see him tomorrow. So again, that defense is so good. Since 2009, roughly 15 years ago, Iowa's defense, all of Iowa's defenses have given up 19 points a game on average. 19 points a game. You should win a lot of football games at 19 points allowed a game. And Iowa's, that's third best in the country in all of college football since 2009 for points allowed. That's Norm Parker, that's Phil Parker, that's great coaches, that's obviously great players. And, I see that kind of a defense again this year, Ed. I don't know about you, but and they'll need it tomorrow. Let us tell you about Utah State. They like to run a play every 8 or 9 seconds. They're going to come in here with the air raid. They call it the air raid defense or offense. They're going to throw it all over the park. They're going to run jet sweeps. Typically, they run jet sweeps, flea flickers. So be ready for anything. Now, 90-degree heat, humidity. If they get a lot of 3 and outs, their defense is going to be stepping on their tongues, and that should help the Iowa offense immensely. But this head coach, Blake Anderson. He had a great 7-year run at Arkansas State, and he is not only the head coach in his 3rd year. He came into Utah State and won 11 games the first year, 11-3. They won the bowl game, won the Mountain West. Last year they were 6-6, got to a bowl game, had a lot of injuries, and got thumped pretty good by Memphis, who has a good program. So he's done a great job out there. But as he told us earlier this week, he said, the atmosphere at Kinnick Stadium is nothing like my guys have ever been in or ever experienced. So all I've told him is, don't try to force the issue. You can lose the game. You can't win the game in the first quarter, but you can certainly lose it in the first quarter. He said, enjoy the moment, enjoy the chaos, live for the moment. He said, this is what you play. He said, this is why we play the game, for this kind of excitement. One of the great stadiums in the country. He had nothing but great praise for the Iowa program. And one of his mentors who taught him about this offense used to coach here, Greg Davis, who was Kirk's offensive coordinator a few years back when C.J. Beathard. And so this guy learned offense under Greg Davis, who used to be at Texas before he came to Iowa. So I don't know what that means, but Iowa should know the offense pretty good.
Yeah, I just liked his comment where he said, well, on their defense, we don't have to worry about where they are. They never change the defense. We just got to figure out how to beat them. So even though they're going every 8 seconds, our defense knows what they're playing, and they know where they're going to be, and they'll be looking in the backfield, and we'll wear them down. But it's a good start. I'm ready to get going.
Yeah, I mean, and this isn't the first. I mean, a lot of the Big Ten offenses now are very similar to what you'll see tomorrow with Utah State, although they don't run what Coach calls pace and space. Their best player on offense is a wide receiver named Terrell Vaughn. He's a junior college transfer, 5'7", 175. You think he's going to take an elbow in the chops tomorrow, once or twice? But they do have good receivers. They have a quarterback named Cooper Laga, who played in 5 games last year and got hurt. And they have 4 or 5 Division I transfers on defense. Oregon, Colorado, Arizona State, Stanford, they come in from all over the Mountain West. They have guys, put it this way, they have 53 new guys on their roster. 34 of them are transfer portal guys. That's the game we're in today. And
I don't know how you can go into the locker room every year with 50 new people. I mean, back when I played in the NFL, we didn't even have free agency. We might have 2 or 3 new players that made the 40-man roster, but now you look at these, well, pro and college, you know, a third of the team is different than it was the year before. It just can't work in the long run.
And I asked Coach about that, and he goes, yeah, we've had to take some time getting to know each other. I don't know how you coach that many new guys. Now, they're not all playing, obviously, but it's amazing. And, of course, coming from Utah, a play-by-play announcer's nightmare, they've got 9 guys with names, last names this long. And naturally, most of them are Samoan. And their best player is, his first name is H-A-L-E, pronounced Holly. His last name is Motu Upuku.
Let's hope he doesn't make
I'll have it right by tomorrow.
Hope he doesn't make a lot of plays.
Motu Upuaka. That's his last name. So if you hear me saying, Pookie in there again for another tackle, tomorrow, you know I'm going to be talking about number 8. And they've got another defensive tackle named Pukisi Vakuata.
That one was easier.
Yeah, that's a lot easier. They have a Tui Uki. They have a middle linebacker named Tufisi Oliyao Anyanwa. But and their punter is an easy one, Katsunli. That's just on defense. I haven't looked at the offense yet, but in any event, it's all in good fun. And as I like to tell classes, what the hell if I make a mistake? Who's going to know? That's Dolphin. He knows what he's doing. All right, another question? Yes, sir, in the back.
Yes, with the addition with USC, UCLA,
UCLA.
Washington next year, do you see the Big Ten going to a 10-conference schedule? And are you worried that the Iowa State game might be rejected?
Okay, I think I got everything. What does USC and UCLA and of course Oregon and Washington coming in do to the Big Ten scheduling? What's it do to the Iowa State rivalry? And it sounds, you talk to to Beth and the administrators. They're going to keep Iowa State as long as they possibly can, and hopefully that's on forever because that's just a great game, great rivalry game. Iowa has 3 protected rivalries in the Big Ten for now: Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Nebraska, as it should be. Everything else is up for grabs, Ed. Obviously, the divisions go away after this year. It'll be a lot harder to win the Big Ten after this year, so let's win the West Division and go to Indy one more time. But of course, the good news is the college football playoff format expands to 12 teams in the very near future, and I think you're going to see that at 18 or 20. The Big Ten will have 18 schools in it after this year. And the ACC, we woke up this morning to news that, let me get this right, Cal, Stanford, and SMU are moving to the ACC. SMU moving to the ACC. I'm still trying to wrap my arms around that one. So you'll have the ACC and the Big Ten with 18 schools. SEC and the Big 12 will have, I believe, 60.
Well, the thing that troubles me is we only talk about football. What about all the other sports?
Yeah.
My daughter played basketball at Iowa, and they practice at 5:30 in the morning, and they'd go on a 3-day road trip, and they still had to make their grades and do that. Now you're talking about all of the other sports, kids traveling coast to coast. And what does that do to a student athlete? Aren't they still student athletes?
They're supposed to be, yeah.
And the money gun,
Yeah.
the money gun of the networks is driving this boat.
It is the multi-billion-dollar TV contracts that is the tail wagging the dog. There's no question about that.
Everybody here listens to radio anyway.
Well, that's true. The smart people listens to the Hawkeye Radio Network. I can remember landing in Cedar Rapids at 3 o'clock on a Monday morning after we played at Maryland. It was an 8 o'clock Sunday night game for television. We get back at, we did gain an hour on the way back, but we get back to the airport and another plane had backed into one of our wings of our charter jet at the Baltimore airport. So we had to wait for a plane to come from, I think, Cincinnati and pick us up. So we land at 3 o'clock. Jordan Bohannon is getting off ahead of me. We get down on the tarmac and he's yawning and stretching. I go, "What time's your first class?" He goes, 8 a.m. So now those kids are a lot younger than we are. I mean, they can, but you hate to see that, and it just kills me to see what's happening to the Pac-12. I mean, now you're down to Washington State and Oregon State.
And my daughter Laura was the vice president of the Pac-12 conference, and
the TV network.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
No, yeah. She the actual conference.
Really?
She she left there 4 years ago because she could see that they hadn't cemented the money they needed from TV.
Yeah, it's
The Pac-12 was owned by the separate universities, not together as the Pac-12 conference. And so it's destroyed the whole thing. She's sick about it. All of her friends are gone. But it doesn't make any sense.
You and I sat here a year ago, and I think we somewhat kiddingly predicted that the day was coming where there's 65 schools in the Power 5 conference, of the 5 Power 5 conferences, which obviously there won't be 5 after this year. And we could see that maybe at some point they're gonna go from 51 through 65 and pat those schools on the head and said, look, we'll revenue share, we'll send you a check, but we're gonna do 25 power schools, 25 best schools east of the Mississippi, 25 west of the Mississippi, and that's where they're gonna derive their playoff schools. And so then all the rivalries change, everything's out the window at that point, but that's college football, college basketball. What they'll have to do, to your first point, is charter large jets that can take basketball, maybe volleyball, or whatever sports are in season with basketball, and fly to USC or UCLA, and then maybe go up the coast to Oregon before coming back home. So and I'm being, I'm in fantasy land here, just predicting what might happen. But to save costs, why wouldn't you do that? I mean,
the main thing is just to schedule your school classes around it.
well, they can tutor on the road. I mean, they can take classes online, but that doesn't have the same value or effect, I don't think, as being in the classroom with your professor.
The experience of being a college student. I like what Kirk Ferentz said earlier this year. The statistic is that of every football player who earns a college scholarship out of high school, only 1% play 3 years in the NFL.
Sure.
So what about the other 99%? And that's what we've always done at Iowa. Make sure they graduate, make sure they go to class, make sure they're good citizens. And all of a sudden it just seems like that part has been pushed aside for TV. And you know how much I like TV. I don't listen or watch it. I listen only to Hawkeye Radio.
Well, then you don't have to worry about any of this. That's it's a different world. It's a different world. Who knows where it's going to go? But let's talk about what we do know. The best player defensively, by the way, for Utah State, other than Mota Upuaka at defensive tackle, he's number 8. Their best player is a safety named Ike Larson, and he's the real deal. He's a local kid from Utah. He's the only player in the country last year to have 4 interceptions, 3 block kicks. So they use him on special teams, and 3 block kicks. He's really gifted. He was a freshman All-American. He's a true sophomore. So look for the Hawks to stay away from him. But they've got other gaps out there that Iowa can attack with the passing game. But Ike Larson, who is the free safety, is the best of the bunch on defense. They also have, believe it or not, a kicker from Australia. Katsanle is his name, and he averaged about 43.5 yards a punt. I don't know what they're doing down there, down under, but man, they know how to raise. They know how to raise punters.
Last year, you said 53 Australian punters
on Division I rosters.
Division I, and when you ask our punter, how could that happen? He said, it's like a Pizza Hut. There's one on every corner.
That's true. Who had a question up here? Yes, sir.
You spoke a little bit about some specific things about this year's team, but in your opinion, what are the biggest difference makers between this year's team and maybe last year's team?
The biggest difference makers between this year's squad and last year's? Well, to me, last year, or like this year, like last year, to me it starts with the offensive line. And I know people don't want to hear this, but at Iowa, the concept, the blueprint has always been with Kirk Ferentz and with Reese Morgan. I mean, pick an offensive line coach. It's always been you come in, you redshirt your freshman year, you get bigger, you get stronger, whether it was Chris Doyle or Raymond Braithwaite now, and by your second year, hopefully you make the two deeps. By your third year, you're starting, and then you're a superstar stud blocker for 2 years. Well, we're not used to watching guys like Tristan Wirfs and Tyler Linderbaum, and these guys have become beyond great players and then leave with a year or 2, 3 years of eligibility left. And eventually, to me, that catches up with you. Now you got to play redshirt freshmen, you got to play true sophomores that haven't gone through the Iowa way, because, and I hate this word developmental school, but that's what we are. And so if you throw in some injuries, maybe you miss on a couple recruits, and this is what you have. Maybe they weren't as good as you thought they were going to be, but you have to have the time to develop them. And now Iowa's had the time to develop them. They suffered through a lot of injuries and inexperience last year. To me, it starts and ends with the offensive line.
Well, it starts there and goes deeply into what the problem's been. But the quarterback position has got to improve also. And I think this guy is the guy. I watched him spring practice. He has very good footwork. He can make all the passes, and most of all, he can see the field. He can go through his progressions, and if you don't have a lot of blocking up front, you better get through those progressions
in a hurry.
Quick, you know.
Yeah. Cade, he verbaled Notre Dame. He was going to Notre Dame. They had a coaching change. He ends up at Michigan, and then Harbaugh brings in a 5-star named J.J. McCarthy, who's really good. Cade tears something in his knee, has a surgery, he's done. You remember Cade McNamara beat us 2 years ago in Indy when he was with Michigan. This guy's a proven winner. He's out of Reno, Nevada. And, an interesting story on how he ended up at Iowa, or a big reason why he ended up at Iowa. The Hawks have on their staff a guy named John Budmeyer, who started 2 or 3 years at Wisconsin a few years ago. John Budmeyer was on the offensive staff at Colorado State when Steve Adazio was the head coach. They came in here and played a couple years ago, and Hawks thumped them pretty good. Well, John was recruiting Cade McNamara out of Reno, Nevada, just down the road from Colorado State. This is why recruiting is not an exact science. So what happens? They get fired at Colorado State. Cade ends up from Notre Dame at Michigan. Cade decides, you know what, you don't want me in Michigan, I'll go elsewhere. John Budmeyer called him. Cade didn't even know Budmeyer was at Iowa. Said, no kidding, Bud, that's where you are. I mean, they stayed in touch. John had just gotten hired at Iowa. Cade came out for a visit, fell in love with the facilities, Iowa City. Coach Ferentz, obviously, Budmeyer's a good friend of his. So John Budmeyer now is in the quarterback room every day. He's a terrific coach. He is married to one of the Hartlieb daughters. That's how small a world it is. So you won't hear that on the air a lot, but that's how Cade McNamara ended up at Iowa City, and we're delighted he has. But I think offensive line, defense, just continue to do what the defense has been doing. Why would you change the defense? I mean, it's a system with terrific players and X Factor. I guess that's what they call Facebook now, X. I just learned that this week.
Twitter.
Oh, that's Twitter. Okay. You can tell I'm a social media junkie. X Factor, we have Cooper DeJean, and he can play anywhere in the field that he wants. So with him and the X-Man, Xavier Wampa, we're in pretty good shape. We'll take one more question. Yes, sir.
Iowa High School football Friday night. Give us a couple of memories from this Friday night in the big play.
Thank you, Daniel. Dan wants to, high school football is revved up going again on Friday nights. He'd like a couple of your favorite memories from Friday night lights.
Well, we were in the Hawkeye 8 conference then, which was 8 schools in southwest Iowa. And there were not any different divisions. Same in basketball. There were no divisions. You played everybody. And so we went undefeated both my junior and senior year as the Atlantic Trojans. And so in January of my senior year, Iowa State came to Atlantic and hired my high school coach and made him the quarterback coach at Iowa State. And I did not want to go to Iowa State. I did not want to go, but man, that's tough because your high school coach is like another father. So Iowa stayed with me, and by and by, I had to defer signing on signing day. I had a coach from Wyoming, a one from Iowa, and my high school coach in my front yard. And I just said, sorry, coach, it was tough. He deserved the job. He was a great coach and went on to coach in college many times after. But Whitey Pirro, whose son, Andy, is now one of the fundraisers at Iowa, he stayed with me. And the rest is history. I got to Iowa, but we couldn't beat anybody. But it was the right move.
Who was your great high school rivalry when you were in Atlantic?
Shenandoah.
Shenandoah. I met some people from Shenandoah here earlier.
Yeah, Shenandoah, actually, the quarterback there, 2 years behind me, went to Nebraska. Had a nice career.
Wow.
At Nebraska. And we would get 3,000 or 4,000 people there on Friday night, and it was a great memory. And I loved all four sports, basketball, baseball, track. That's the way it's supposed to be. And
for sure.
If you notice in Iowa, we recruit a lot of kids that play all the other sports.
Multiple sports.
And are good at it.
Well, I think it'd be great to conclude our little get-together for another year. I don't know, some of you may have heard this story, how Ed was introduced to football. He probably was going to play another sport until he was walking home from school. Actually, you weren't walking. Take us through that, will you?
Well, yeah, when I was a freshman in high school, they consolidated the school districts, and I had been going to a country school. And they didn't have buses yet at that time. And so to get to and from school, my dad bought me a horse. So I used to ride this horse to school every morning and home every night. And one of the early days, I was riding by the football practice field, and I saw these guys out there running around and tackling and kicking and blocking. And so I went over to the coach and I said, "What's going on here?" He said, "Well, we're playing football." He said, "The object is you got 11 on offense, 11 on defense. The more points you score, you go through the defense. At the end of the game, the more points, that person wins." He said, "Well, looking at your size, you look like you'd be a running back." I said, "I'd love to try." He said, "We want anybody interested." So they gave me the ball, and the very first play, I went through the line of scrimmage, cut back, ran over a couple guys, went down, cut back again, went in for a touchdown. So I came back to coach, I said, "Well, doesn't seem to be much to it." He said, "Why don't you get off your horse and try?" The horse went to Nebraska, I went to Iowa.
It's one of my all-time favorite recruiting stories. Why don't you get off your horse and try it? I always tee him up on that. I apologize if you've heard it before, but it's funnier every time he tells it. So, well, you've been a great audience as always. Great Hawk fans. We'll look forward to seeing you over there tomorrow at Kinnick Stadium and back here next year, all in honor of the great Hayden Fry at FRYfest. Thank you all. Have a good day.